The morning sun poured through the curtains, painting golden streaks across the marble floor. Elena Tran, 5 months pregnant, stood by the kitchen counter stirring a pot of soup. She hummed softly, her free hand resting gently on her growing belly. Outside, the birds were singing. Inside, everything looked like a dream. Her husband, David, entered the room in a sharp suit, his tie perfectly knotted, his hair slicked back. To anyone watching, he was the picture of a successful man, a devoted husband, a future father, a man in control of his world. But Elena could feel it. The warmth between them had died weeks ago. "Don't wait for me tonight," David said, sipping his coffee without looking at her. "The company dinner might go late." Elena smiled weakly. "That's the third one this week," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "What was that?" he asked sharply. "Nothing," she said quickly, lowering her eyes. When he left, the house fell silent. Only the ticking clock kept her company. She rubbed her belly and whispered to her unborn child, "Don't worry, baby. Mommy's okay." But she wasn't. She hadn't been for a long time. That evening she found a perfume scent on his jacket, sweet, floral, expensive. It wasn't hers. She froze. Her trembling fingers reached into his pocket and found a folded note. "I'll wait for you at the hotel. Don't make her suspicious." Her heart sank. The air left her lungs. She clutched her belly, trying not to cry, but the sobs came anyway, quiet, broken, helpless. When David returned, she asked nothing. She cooked dinner. She smiled. She pretended. Because that's what wives were taught to do. Endure. The next morning, David surprised her. "Let's go away this weekend," he said. "You've been stressed. You need fresh air." Her eyes widened. "You mean it?" He smiled, coldly. "Of course. I'll take care of everything." She believed him. She packed her favorite dress, the baby's ultrasound photo, and a small cross her mother gave her. It was the first time she'd felt hope in weeks. They drove for hours, passing the city limits, the suburbs, the empty roads leading deep into the forest. The trees grew thicker, taller, darker. Elena glanced at him nervously. "David, where are we going?" "You'll see," he replied flatly, his eyes fixed ahead. The car stopped near an abandoned cabin. He got out, walked around to her side, and opened the door. She smiled shyly, stepping out carefully with her belly. "Is this a surprise?" she asked. He nodded once. "Yes," he said quietly, "a big one." Then, before she could speak again, he pulled a rope from the trunk. Her smile faded. "David, what are you doing?" He didn't answer. The birds went silent. The forest seemed to hold its breath. He grabbed her wrists. The rope tightened. Her scream echoed through the trees. And then everything went black. Cold air bit through her thin sweater as Elena's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then the pain in her wrists and the burning tightness around her belly reminded her she was tied to a tree in the middle of nowhere. Her husband was gone. The man she loved, the father of her unborn child, had left her to die. The forest was eerily silent, except for the faint rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. The smell of damp soil filled her lungs. She tried to scream, but her voice cracked into the emptiness. "David, please, don't do this." Only the trees answered back, whispering in the wind. She twisted her wrists, trying to loosen the rope, but it only cut deeper. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to breathe. Her baby kicked. It was as if her child knew the danger. "Please," she whispered, trembling, "hold on for Mommy." Time passed. Minutes blurred into hours. The sun disappeared behind the horizon, and the forest turned into a shadowy maze. Her stomach growled. Her lips cracked. Her mind replayed every memory. David's laughter, his promises, his hands on her belly as he said, "We'll be a family forever." Lies. All of it. Then came the sound. A low growl in the distance. Deep, guttural, close. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She froze. Something was moving through the trees, slow, heavy, deliberate. Branches snapped. Leaves rustled. She could hear its breathing now, loud, steady, animal. "No, no, please," she sobbed. The shape emerged from the shadows, a massive lion, its golden eyes glowing in the moonlight. Its mane shimmered like fire. It was beautiful and terrifying. Elena couldn't move. The creature stepped closer, sniffing the air. It stopped just feet away from her. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the pain, waiting for the end. But it didn't come. Instead, the lion let out a deep rumbling sound, not a growl, but something gentler. It circled her, its tail swishing, then sat down. Its eyes locked on hers. "You're not gonna hurt me, are you?" she whispered. Her tears caught the moonlight as they fell. The lion tilted its head as if understanding her words. Then it looked toward the dark path behind it and roared, a thunderous, echoing roar that shook the forest. Elena flinched, her heart racing. Somewhere far away, a flashlight flickered through the trees. A man's voice shouted, "Simba! What is it, boy?" The lion roared again, louder this time, pacing back toward the sound. Elena's breath hitched. Someone was coming. Her vision blurred from exhaustion, but she caught a glimpse of a tall figure running through the trees. The man's silhouette appeared beside the lion, his voice deep and urgent. "What the hell?" he whispered, kneeling beside her. Elena tried to speak, but darkness pulled her under again. The last thing she saw was the lion's golden eyes watching over her, guarding her. A faint, sterile smell filled the air. Beeping sounds echoed somewhere close. Elena's eyes fluttered open, her body aching all over. For a second, she panicked. Where was she? The last thing she remembered was the lion's golden eyes and the man's shadowy figure. Now she was lying in a soft bed, wrapped in clean sheets, surrounded by warm light. Her wrists were bandaged. She blinked, struggling to breathe. Then a gentle voice spoke. "You're safe," the man said quietly. "You're going to be fine." She turned her head. A tall man stood beside her, dressed in a dark sweater and jeans. His face was rugged yet kind, with sharp blue eyes that held a strange sadness. "Who are you?" Elena whispered. "My name's Lucas Carter," he said. "You're in my home. My lion found you last night." "Your lion?" she repeated weakly. Lucas nodded toward the large window. Outside, through the glass, she saw a vast green field. And there he was, the lion. Calm, majestic, lying in the grass, tail swaying. Elena gasped softly. "He didn't hurt me." "He wouldn't," Lucas said with a faint smile. "Simba's not just any lion. He was rescued as a cub. He knows how to sense fear and innocence." Tears welled in her eyes. "He saved me. You both did." Lucas handed her a glass of water. "You were half conscious when I found you. What happened out there?" Her lips trembled. For a long time she couldn't speak. Then the words spilled out. Her husband, the betrayal, being tied to the tree, left for dead. Lucas listened silently, jaw tightening. When she finished, his eyes darkened. "No one deserves that," he said softly, "especially not someone carrying life inside her." She looked down at her belly instinctively. "My baby?" "Still strong," Lucas reassured her. "The doctor said you're lucky. You both are." Elena closed her eyes, a single tear rolling down her cheek. "Why would he do that to me? I loved him." Lucas sighed. "Some men destroy what they can't control." For a moment, silence filled the room, thick and heavy. The wind outside brushed against the windows. "Rest now," he said finally. "You'll need your strength." He turned to leave, but Elena's voice stopped him. "Lucas?" He paused. "Thank you for saving me." He glanced back, his expression unreadable. "Don't thank me," he said quietly. "Thank fate. I just followed Simba's call." As the door closed, Elena looked out at the lion again. The creature lifted its head, meeting her gaze through the glass. Somehow she felt comforted, as if that wild heart understood her pain better than any human ever could. But deep down, beneath the safety of that beautiful house, fear still lingered. David didn't know she was alive. Not yet. And if he ever found out, he wouldn't stop until she was gone for good. Morning sunlight filtered through the glass walls of the mansion, dancing across the marble floors. Elena sat upright in bed, the soft scent of fresh roses filling the room. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe, but safety felt foreign, like something she no longer trusted. Lucas entered with a tray of breakfast, warm soup, toast, and herbal tea. "You should eat," he said calmly. "The doctor says you're still weak." Elena smiled faintly, her voice hoarse. "You really didn't have to go through all this for a stranger." He met her eyes. "You're not a stranger. You were left to die on my land. That makes it my responsibility." His tone was matter of fact, but his eyes betrayed a quiet concern. After breakfast, he helped her walk to the balcony. The mansion overlooked acres of emerald forest and an open sanctuary where animals roamed freely. A pair of giraffes grazed near the fence. Monkeys played in the trees, and there, resting in the shade, was Simba, the lion who had saved her. "He's always watching," Lucas said with a soft chuckle. "I think he's adopted you." Elena touched the railing, her eyes filling with wonder. "I've never seen anything so beautiful. It feels like another world." Lucas nodded slowly. "That's why I built this place, to keep them safe and to keep the world out." She turned to him. You live here alone? He hesitated. Mostly. My parents passed away years ago. I inherited everything, but I don't care for the city life. People there. He trailed off, looking distant. They take more than they give. Elena recognized the pain in his words. It mirrored her own. Later that afternoon, a kind-faced woman named Clara came to help her bathe and dress. Mr. Carter doesn't bring guests here often, Clara said gently. You must be special. Elena blushed. I'm just someone who is lucky to be found. Clara smiled knowingly. Maybe luck has nothing to do with it. As night fell, Lucas invited her to dine in the great hall. Candles flickered on the long oak table, casting soft golden light. He sat across from her, his expression calm, observant. I made some calls today, he said, about your husband. Elena froze. You what? I didn't tell anyone your name, he assured, but I wanted to understand who could do something like that. He leaned back, eyes sharp. Your husband, David Tran, is the director of Tran Construction, correct? She nodded weakly. Well, according to what I found, he's been spending company money, buying gifts for someone named Vanessa Liu. Her stomach turned. Vanessa, his coworker. Lucas's voice grew colder. He's not just a cheater. He's a thief. Elena's hand shook as she reached for her glass of water. He doesn't know I'm alive, she said quietly. Not yet. Lucas's gaze held hers, unblinking. Then let's keep it that way. Outside, thunder rumbled over the trees. Simba growled softly from the courtyard, sensing tension in the air. Because in that moment, both Elena and Lucas knew. Her story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Rain drummed softly against the glass walls of the mansion, turning the forest beyond into a misty blur. Elena sat near the fireplace, wrapped in a wool blanket. The crackling flames painted her face with a golden glow, but her eyes were far away, somewhere back in the darkness where her world had ended. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw David's face, his cold stare, the rope tightening, the sound of his car driving away. Sometimes she woke up in the night gasping, clutching her belly, afraid it had all been real again. Lucas found her like that one evening, trembling near the fire. Without a word, he set a mug of warm milk beside her. You're safe here, he said softly. She nodded but didn't look up. Safe doesn't feel real anymore. He pulled a chair closer. You've been through hell, Elena. It takes time. Her eyes glistened with tears. I keep wondering why. Why did he hate me that much? I loved him. I carried his child. Lucas sighed, his gaze fixed on the fire. Sometimes love is just another thing people use to control you. That night, thunder shook the sky. Elena walked to her window, watching the rain slide down the glass. Out in the courtyard, Simba paced slowly, his golden fur slick with rain. He looked up at her window, almost sensing her pain. She whispered, You saved me once, didn't you? The lion let out a soft rumble before lying down near the gate, guarding the mansion like a loyal sentinel. The next morning, Clara helped her dress. You look stronger today, the housekeeper said with a smile. Elena smiled faintly. Maybe a little. She wandered through the mansion's art gallery, stopping before a large portrait. It was Lucas, younger, standing with his parents beside the same lion cub that had grown into Simba. They looked happy, until she noticed something in Lucas's eyes, even then, a quiet loneliness. Later, over lunch, she asked him, Do you ever miss them, your family? He looked up, caught off guard. Every day. My father died in a car crash. My mother couldn't live with the grief. That's when I decided to leave the world behind. I'm sorry, that she whispered. He shrugged. Maybe fate wanted me here, waiting for someone else who needed saving. For a moment, their eyes met. Something unspoken lingered in the air, something neither of them was ready to name. That evening, while walking through the garden, Elena's phone buzzed. She froze. No one knew she was alive. Lucas had given her a temporary number only for emergencies. Her hands trembled as she looked at the message. It read, You should have stayed dead. Her heart stopped. The phone slipped from her fingers, hitting the wet grass. She turned toward the mansion, fear flooding her veins. Lucas, she cried. He came running, eyes wide. What happened? She pointed to the phone, her voice shaking. He knows. And for the first time since that night, Elena realized David was coming for her again. The message burned in her mind like a brand. You should have stayed dead. Those words didn't just scare Elena. They tore open every wound she thought had begun to heal. Lucas took the phone from her trembling hand. His eyes darkened as he read the text. This number, it's untraceable, he muttered, jaw clenched. but whoever sent it knew exactly what to say. Elena could barely breathe. "It's him, Lucas. I know it's him." Lucas met her eyes. "David?" She nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "He must have found out somehow. Maybe the worker who leaked the photo. Oh God, what if he comes here?" Lucas's tone hardened. "If he does, he won't get near you. Not while you're under my roof." That night, he doubled security around the mansion. Cameras blinked from the gates. Guards patrolled the forest paths. Even Simba seemed restless, pacing the perimeter, growling into the darkness as if he sensed danger approaching. Elena couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made her flinch. The sound of rain tapping against the windows felt like footsteps. She walked through the hallways, hands pressed to her belly, whispering to her unborn child. "We're okay. Mommy's got you." Lucas found her in the kitchen at 2 a.m., clutching a glass of water. "You should be resting," he said quietly. "I can't," she admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I see him. I see that rope. I hear him laughing." Lucas stepped closer. His voice softened. "He's not going to hurt you again. Not while I'm here." Their eyes met, hers full of fear, his full of determination. There was something about the way he looked at her that made her heart slow down, even for just a second. But peace didn't last long. The next morning, one of the security guards rushed into the mansion, holding a black envelope. "This was left at the main gate," he said, panting. Lucas opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Elena, tied to the tree, dirt on her face, eyes wide with terror. On the back, scrawled in red ink, were the words, "Round 2 starts soon." Elena's knees gave out. Lucas caught her before she hit the floor. "He's watching us," she whispered. "He's out there." Lucas handed the photo to his assistant and barked orders. "Lock down the property. No one in or out without my clearance. Get the police on the line." Hours later, the police arrived, but without evidence of who sent the message. All they could do was promise to keep an eye out. When they left, Lucas slammed his fist on the table. "He's taunting you," he said. "He wants to break you again." Elena's expression changed. There was fear, but also something new. Anger, strength. "He won't," she said firmly. "He already took everything once. I won't let him take my child too." Outside, thunder rolled through the forest. Simba lifted his head and roared, a warning to whatever evil lingered beyond the gates. Because this time, Elena Tran wasn't the same broken woman he left to die. This time, she was ready to fight back. The storm passed overnight, leaving the world quiet and heavy with mist. But the silence wasn't peaceful. It was tense, like the air before an explosion. Elena woke to the sound of Simba's deep growl echoing across the courtyard. She rushed to the window, her heart pounding. The lion stood at the edge of the property, his muscles tight, his mane damp from dew. He was staring into the forest, watching something or someone. "Simba?" she whispered. Lucas appeared behind her, pulling on a jacket. "He's been like that since dawn," he said. "He's warning us." "Of what?" she asked, fear trembling in her voice. "I don't know," he replied, "but animals like him, they feel danger before we do." Downstairs, security cameras flickered. One of the guards pointed to the screen. A blurry figure moved between the trees, too far to identify, but close enough to send chills down everyone's spine. Lucas ordered extra patrols and turned to Elena. "You're not leaving this house, no matter what happens," she nodded, clutching the cross around her neck. "I understand." Hours crawled by. The fog thickened, wrapping the mansion in ghostly white. Elena sat in the library, trying to read, but every creak made her jump. Clara brought her tea, whispering, "Mr. Carter will keep you safe, dear. He always does." Elena smiled weakly, but her stomach twisted. "It's not him I'm worried about, Clara. It's what's out there." That afternoon, Lucas joined her for lunch. He tried to change the subject, talking about the animals, the sanctuary, his plans to expand the refuge. For a moment, she saw a glimpse of the man behind the armor, gentle, thoughtful, protective. "You built all this alone?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "With help. But yeah, I wanted a place where no one could hurt anyone again." Her eyes softened. "You really believe in protecting the broken, don't you?" He looked at her then, and something in his gaze said more than words ever could. "Maybe because I used to be one." Before she could respond, Simba's roar shook the walls. It wasn't his usual call. It was sharper, angrier. Lucas stood immediately. "Stay here," he ordered, grabbing his rifle. Elena's voice cracked. "Lucas, please be careful." He nodded once before running out into the fog. Through the window, she saw his shadow disappear down the path, Simba leading the way like a guardian of fire and fury. Minutes stretched like hours. The silence pressed against her chest. She wanted to look away, but something inside told her not to. Then, another roar, louder, followed by a human shout. Her blood ran cold. She rushed to the door, ignoring Clara's cries. "Elena, stop." But she couldn't stop. She had to know. She stumbled out into the mist, barefoot, the wind whipping her hair. Through the haze, she saw Simba standing protectively over someone lying on the ground. Lucas knelt beside it, shouting orders into his radio. As Elena got closer, her breath caught in her throat. Because lying there, bloodied but alive, was one of Lucas's guards, his hand clutching a familiar gold cufflink, and engraved on it, gleaming faintly through the mud, were the initials, DT, David Tran. Rain began to fall again, slow and cold, washing the mud from the wounded guard's face. Lucas pressed his hand to the man's shoulder. "Stay with me, Mason. What happened?" The guard coughed, blood staining his lips. "They ambushed us, in the woods. 2 men, masks, guns, said they wanted the woman. I tried to stop them." Elena's heart pounded as she knelt beside him. "Who sent them?" she whispered. Mason's trembling hand opened, revealing the gold cufflink. "One dropped this. I saw his face for a second. Same man from the photo." Lucas took the cufflink and turned it in his palm. The initials glistened under the rain. DT. "Elena," he said quietly, "this belongs to your husband, doesn't it?" Her breath caught. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "That's his. I gave it to him on our first anniversary." Lucas's jaw tightened. "Then we have proof." They carried Mason inside, calling the doctor immediately. He would survive, but barely. Lucas ordered the perimeter sealed. "No one leaves, no one enters," he told the guards. Elena sat in the corner of the living room, shaking, her hands over her belly. Every sound outside felt like a threat. Lucas approached her gently. "He's getting desperate," he said. "He knows you're alive and he wants to silence you before anyone else finds out." Tears welled in her eyes. "He tried to kill me once. I don't understand why he's doing it again. What more could he want?" Lucas hesitated before answering. "Money, control, maybe just to make sure you can't ruin him. Men like that, when they lose power, they destroy whatever reminds them of it." Elena buried her face in her hands. "He doesn't even care about his child." Lucas crouched beside her. "You'll never face him alone again, do you hear me?" Their eyes met. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain against the glass. Later that night, Lucas went through his study, searching for more evidence. He placed the cufflink in a small box, along with the threatening letter and photo. He called his lawyer and spoke in low tones. "If something happens to me, make sure these reach the police." Elena overheard him and stepped inside quietly. "Don't talk like that," she said. "Nothing's going to happen to you." He looked up, his face shadowed by the lamp. "I've dealt with men like David before. They don't stop until they have blood on their hands." She crossed the room, her voice trembling but steady. "Then he'll have to go through me first." Lucas's eyes softened. "You've got more courage than you think, Elena." Suddenly, Simba's roar echoed from outside, deep, sharp, and angry. Both of them turned toward the window. The lion was pacing the gate again, tail whipping through the air. Lucas grabbed his rifle. "Stay here." Elena followed him to the hallway. "Lucas, wait, what if it's him?" He looked back once. "Then tonight, we end this." Because this time, David Tran wasn't hunting a helpless woman. He was walking straight into a lion's den. The wind howled through the forest, bending branches and scattering leaves like whispers of warning. Inside the mansion, every light flickered as thunder rolled above the hills. Elena sat by the window, her hands clutching the blanket over her belly, watching Simba's golden form move restlessly near the gates. Something was coming. She could feel it. Lucas loaded his rifle, checking the chamber. "He's here," he said quietly. "I can feel it too." Elena's voice shook. "How can you be so sure?" Lucas glanced toward the monitors showing the security feeds. One by one, the cameras blinked out. Static filled the screens. "Because that's not nature," he said. "That's sabotage." Outside, Simba growled, low, deep, protective. The lion's golden eyes cut through the darkness like burning torches. Lucas turned to Elena. "Go upstairs. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." She wanted to argue, but his expression was steel. "Promise me, Elena." She nodded reluctantly. "Please be careful." He gave her a faint, reassuring smile. "I'll handle it." The moment she disappeared up the stairs, Lucas grabbed a flashlight and stepped out into the storm. Rain soaked through his jacket instantly, but he kept moving, his boots crunching against the gravel. Simba followed, muscles tense, tail whipping like fire. Lightning flashed, and in that split second, Lucas saw them. Two figures near the tree line, dressed in black, holding guns. "Get down," he shouted, firing a warning shot into the air. Simba roared and lunged forward, sending one of the intruders fleeing into the forest. The other raised his weapon, but before he could shoot, Simba tackled him to the ground, a feral blur of gold and fury. Inside, Elena heard the chaos, the shots, the thunder, the lion's roar. She pressed her ear to the door, whispering, "Lucas, please be okay." Down below, Lucas wrestled the second intruder, knocking the gun from his hand. He ripped the man's mask off and froze. It wasn't David. It was someone else. "Who sent you?" Lucas demanded, his voice sharp. The man spat blood, grinning. "You already know the name." Lucas's stomach turned. "David Tran." The man nodded once before losing consciousness. Lucas called his team through the radio, ordering them to secure the area. Simba stood nearby, breathing heavily, his mane dripping rain. The lion's eyes met Lucas's, as if to say, "It's not over yet." Inside, Elena sat trembling as the door creaked open. She gasped, then exhaled in relief when Lucas appeared. He was soaked, bruised, but alive. "It's done," he said, lowering his rifle. "They're gone." She threw her arms around him without thinking, her body shaking against his. "I thought I lost you." He hesitated, then wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "You won't lose me, Elena. Not now. Not ever." But just as she began to calm, a shadow passed by the window, a dark silhouette, watching. Lucas stiffened, hand reaching for his weapon again. "Someone else is here," he whispered, and this time he knew exactly who it was. The wind howled again, rattling the mansion's iron gates. Lightning slashed across the sky, lighting up the shadow standing just beyond the fence. Lucas aimed his rifle, narrowing his eyes through the rain. There, through the sheets of water, stood a man in a long black coat, soaked and motionless. He didn't try to hide. He just stood there, staring up at the mansion. Elena joined Lucas at the window, her voice barely a whisper. "That can't be." Lucas cut her off. "Stay back." He zoomed the camera's lens in, and the face came into focus. Pale, sharp features, cold eyes, a smirk that could curdle blood. "David Tran." Elena stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth. "He's here," she breathed. "He actually came." Lucas kept his voice low and steady. "He won't get in, I'll make sure of it." But David wasn't there to sneak. He wanted to be seen. From outside the gate, David called out, his voice echoing through the storm. "You're a hard woman to find, Elena. I thought maybe the wolves had finished the job for me." Elena froze. His tone was calm, mocking, like he was talking to an old friend. Lucas's blood boiled. He stepped out onto the balcony, rain pelting his face. "You need to leave, now," he shouted. David's eyes shifted to him. "And who are you? The new hero? The beast's master?" Lucas didn't answer. David laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "You think hiding her makes you noble? You don't even know who she really is." Elena's heart hammered in her chest. "Don't listen to him," she cried. But David kept going. "She's good at pretending, fragile, innocent. But she's been lying to you, Lucas. She's not a victim. She's a thief." Lucas lowered his rifle slightly, confusion flashing across his face. "What are you talking about?" David smirked. "Ask her about the money she transferred before she disappeared. Ask her where your precious Lion Sanctuary funding came from. You'll find my company's accounts missing a few million." Elena's mouth fell open. "That's not true. He's twisting everything." David's grin widened. "Oh, sweetheart, I never lie. You just make it so easy." Lucas looked at her. For a flicker of a second, doubt crossed his expression, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "Get off my property," he ordered, voice like thunder. David's smile faded. "You can't hide forever, Elena. The world thinks you're dead. Maybe I should keep it that way." Then he turned and walked away into the storm, disappearing between the trees. Elena collapsed onto the floor, shaking. "He won't stop, Lucas. Not until I'm gone." Lucas knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "Then we stop him first." Outside, Simba let out a roar that split the sky, loud, furious, defiant. Lightning illuminated the forest for one blinding second, and in that flash, something metallic gleamed where David had stood. Lucas narrowed his eyes. It was a small device half buried in the mud. A tracker. David hadn't just come to threaten them, he had come to mark them. The storm finally broke at dawn, leaving the sky gray and heavy with silence. But peace didn't return to the mansion. The night had changed everything. Lucas placed the small tracking device on his desk. It was no bigger than a coin, coated in mud. "He planted it here," he muttered, his voice cold. "He knows exactly where we are." Elena stood near the window, staring out at the drenched forest. Her reflection looked pale and hollow. "Then we have to leave," she whispered. "We can't stay here anymore." Lucas shook his head. "If we run, he wins. This property is secured better than anywhere else. I won't let him chase you for the rest of your life." "But Lucas," he interrupted gently. "He wants fear. Don't give it to him." Clara entered, holding a tray of tea, her hands trembling slightly. "Sir, the guards found more of these near the west fence." She placed 3 identical trackers beside the first. Lucas cursed under his breath. "He's mapped the entire perimeter." Simba, pacing near the glass doors, let out a low growl. His golden eyes followed something unseen beyond the trees. "Even he feels it," Elena whispered. "David's watching us." Lucas placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let him watch," he said. "We'll use it to our advantage." He gathered the trackers, wrapped them in aluminum foil, and dropped them into a metal box. "This will block the signal for now, but I'm going to make him think we're still here." "How?" she asked. Lucas smiled faintly. "By giving him a show he won't forget." That afternoon, Lucas met with his tech team and security staff. "Plant decoys," he ordered. "I want movement in every window, lights on rotation. He's expecting us to hide. We'll make him think we're fearless." Elena watched him command with calm precision. For the first time, she realized how dangerous he could be when protecting someone. There was something powerful, almost primal, about him. Meanwhile, she prepared a suitcase quietly, just in case things went wrong. Clara noticed. "Running away won't fix what he did," she said softly. Elena sighed. "Maybe not, but I won't risk another innocent life for mine." That night, the mansion came alive with false movement. Lights flicking, shadows pacing behind curtains, voices echoing from hidden speakers. From the outside, it looked full and alert. But in reality, only Lucas, Elena, Clara, and a few guards remained. The others had relocated to a backup safe house. Lucas sat beside the control room screens, eyes locked on the cameras. "He's coming tonight," he said. "I can feel it." Elena stood beside him, clutching the pendant her mother had given her. "What if he's smarter than this?" Lucas smirked. "Then he'll walk right into our trap." Hours passed. The mansion was silent except for the hum of machines and the steady patter of rain. Then, suddenly, one of the screens flickered. A shape moved near the west gate. Simba's head snapped up. He growled, ears flat. Lucas grabbed his rifle. "It's him." Elena reached for his arm, her voice barely a whisper. "Be careful." He turned toward her, eyes sharp, determined. "I will." But as he left the room, another monitor blinked to life behind him, showing a second shadow already inside the mansion. The mansion was eerily still, the kind of silence that pressed against the skin. Lucas moved quickly through the corridors, rifle steady in his hands, every sense sharpened by instinct. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, but inside, danger was already dripping through the walls. In the control room, Elena watched the monitors, her heart pounding. One screen showed Lucas moving along the west corridor. Another camera, the one facing the library, flickered, then cut to black. "Lucas," she whispered into the intercom. "Camera 5 just went down." His voice crackled through. "Stay in the control room and lock the door. Don't move until I say." But before she could respond, the lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the mansion. Elena gasped. She reached for her phone flashlight, its pale glow trembling across the floor. No. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, heavy. Not Lucas's. She froze. A shadow moved across the far wall, a tall figure, calm and certain, walking toward the room. Elena backed up, her breath quick and shallow. "Lucas?" she called out, but her voice cracked on the second syllable. No answer. The doorknob turned once, locked. Then again, harder this time. The shadow paused. Then slowly it began to laugh. That voice. Smooth. Cruel. Familiar. "Still breathing, I see," David said softly from the other side of the door. "You really are hard to kill, Elena." Her knees weakened, but she forced herself to speak. "You don't scare me anymore," he chuckled. "Then why are you shaking?" She scanned the room, desperate. Her eyes landed on the small emergency button Lucas had installed under the desk. She dropped to her knees and pressed it hard. Somewhere in the distance, a silent alarm triggered. David must have heard the faint click. "Oh, calling for your new lover, are you?" he sneered. "That millionaire thinks he can protect you. But everyone has a weakness, my dear, and I already found his." Before she could ask what he meant, glass shattered behind her. A window burst open as a black-clad man climbed in, grabbing her from behind. She screamed, struggling, kicking wildly. "Let go of me." The intruder's grip tightened. "Quiet." Then came the roar, deep, feral, unearthly. "Simba." The lion charged through the hallway like a storm given flesh, his eyes blazing gold. The intruder froze just long enough for Elena to twist free. Simba leapt, tackling the man to the ground, a flash of teeth and fury. Elena stumbled backward, gasping for breath, her hands shaking. She could hear David shouting from the corridor, "Get her out of there, now!" Then, gunfire. Simba roared again, but one shot cracked through the air. The lion staggered, growling, blood streaking his mane. "Simba!" Elena cried. From down the hall, Lucas's voice thundered, "Elena, get down!" He appeared through the smoke, rifle raised, eyes blazing. David turned, smirking through the chaos. "Round 2, Carter." And before Lucas could fire, David vanished into the shadows, leaving blood, broken glass, and the sound of the lion's ragged breath behind him. The echo of the gunshot still lingered in the air, sharp and endless. Elena's scream cut through the smoke as Simba collapsed on the marble floor, his golden mane stained crimson. "No," she cried, dropping to her knees beside him. Her trembling hands pressed against the wound in his shoulder. "Stay with me, please. You can't leave me now." Lucas rushed to her side, his rifle swinging behind him. "Elena, get back!" He could still be inside, but she didn't move. "He saved me again, Lucas. He saved me." Lucas crouched, examining the wound quickly. "It's not fatal," he said, his voice low and controlled. The bullet grazed him. He's strong. Relief flooded her face, though tears still streamed down her cheeks. She stroked the lion's head as he growled softly, eyes half closed. "You're okay. You're okay." Lucas turned to his team, barking orders. "Lock every exit. I want every inch of this house searched. David's not getting out alive this time." Guards spread through the mansion like shadows, sweeping every room. The power flickered back on, flooding the hallways with a harsh white glow. And there, on the polished marble floor, lay streaks of blood leading toward the back entrance. "He's injured," Lucas muttered, following the trail. "That's something." Elena tried to stand, but Lucas stopped her gently. "Stay with Simba. Clara's calling the vet. I'll handle him." "Be careful," she whispered, her eyes full of fear and fury. Lucas nodded once and disappeared into the corridor, his boots echoing against the marble. Elena sat beside Simba, her hands still trembling. She could feel the lion's heavy breathing under her palms. "You've saved me twice now," she whispered. "I don't deserve you." Clara rushed in moments later with a medical kit and blankets. "The vet is on his way," she said, kneeling beside the lion. Her eyes darted nervously toward the blood trail. "Do you think that monster's still here?" Elena's jaw tightened. "He won't leave until he thinks I'm dead again." Meanwhile, Lucas followed the trail through the back hallway to the garden door. Rain poured through the open frame, the storm's remnants dripping from the vines. The blood led into the woods. He raised his radio. "He's gone into the forest. Keep the floodlights on and the gates sealed." Then, faintly, he heard it. David's voice echoing through the trees. "You think you can protect her forever, Carter? She's just another broken toy waiting to crack." Lucas's grip on his rifle tightened. "You made one mistake, David," he called back. "You underestimated her." The sound of footsteps faded into the rain, but Lucas didn't chase. Not yet. He knew David was desperate, and desperation made men sloppy. Back inside, Elena whispered to Clara, "I can't keep hiding. He'll never stop. I have to face him." Clara's eyes widened. "Face him? He tried to kill you." Elena wiped her tears. "Exactly. And that's why he'll never expect me to fight back." She looked toward the blood-streaked floor, where Simba lay breathing steadily, alive but wounded. And in that reflection of blood and rain, Elena made a silent promise. Next time, she would be the hunter. The next morning, sunlight crept through the curtains, pale and cold. The mansion was quieter than ever, as if holding its breath after the chaos of the night. Elena hadn't slept. She sat beside Simba in the medical wing, gently stroking his mane as he rested, His breathing was steady now, his strength slowly returning. "You've always protected me," she whispered. "But this time, I'll protect you." When Lucas entered, his eyes softened at the sight of her. He carried 2 cups of coffee and set one beside her. "How is he?" "He's strong," she replied. "Stronger than any of us." Lucas smiled faintly. "He'll recover in a few days. The vet says it's a clean wound." Then his tone hardened. "But David's still out there, and the police are useless without more proof." Elena turned toward him, her voice calm but resolute. "Then we'll give them proof." He frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm done hiding," she said firmly. "He wants me to be afraid, to crawl into the dark and disappear. But I won't. I'm going to end this." Lucas studied her, seeing something new in her eyes. Gone was the broken, trembling woman who had once begged for her life in the woods. In her place stood someone fierce, unyielding, a mother fighting for her child and her future. "Elena," he said softly, "revenge can destroy you." She met his gaze. "He already tried to destroy me, Lucas. This isn't revenge, it's justice." Clara entered with a tray of food, overhearing the last part. "You shouldn't go after him," she warned. "That man's a devil." Elena's expression was calm, almost eerie. "The devil only wins when angels stay silent." Lucas exhaled, rubbing his temples. "If you're serious about this, we do it my way. Smart, strategic, no risks to you or the baby. Promise me that." She nodded. "I promise." Later that day, Lucas gathered his security team. "David Tran is wounded, desperate, and somewhere nearby," he said. "He'll strike again, but this time we'll be ready. I want his every move tracked." Meanwhile, Elena walked through the mansion's garden, her hand resting on her belly. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of rain and roses. She whispered to her unborn child, "Your father tried to erase us, but he forgot. We survived." Simba, still weak but alert, lifted his head as she passed. Their eyes met, and for a moment, it was as if he understood the fire burning inside her. That night, Elena joined Lucas in his study. Maps of the property lay across the table, covered with red markings and notes. "He's hiding in the forest," Lucas said. "My drones caught heat signatures near the old cabin." Elena froze. "That's where he took me, where he tied me up." Lucas looked at her. "Then that's where we'll finish this." She swallowed hard but didn't flinch. "Let's end it." Lucas placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You sure you're ready?" Elena met his gaze steadily. "I was ready the night he left me to die." Outside, the wind howled again. But this time, it wasn't fear that filled the mansion, it was purpose. The forest looked different in daylight, yet the memories hit her like ghosts in the fog. Elena sat quietly in the passenger seat as Lucas's SUV rumbled down the muddy road toward the old hunting cabin. Her heart thudded with each turn, each familiar tree. Every sound, the wind brushing through branches, the distant caw of a crow, dragged her back to that night of ropes, rain, and betrayal. Lucas glanced at her. "If this gets too hard, say the word, and we'll turn around." She shook her head. "I need to see it. I need to face it." He nodded but kept his rifle across his lap, eyes scanning the dense forest. The car came to a stop before the clearing. There it was, the cabin. Abandoned, weathered, and half swallowed by vines. The same one David had used as a prison. Elena's breath caught. "It's just as I remember it." Lucas stepped out first, checking the area. "Stay close to me." The air was thick with damp soil and decay. Elena followed, each step sinking into the soft earth. Her eyes fell on the tree, the one where she'd been tied. The rope still hung there, frayed and rotting, a silent witness to her nightmare. Her knees went weak. "That's where it happened." Lucas's voice was gentle but firm. "You don't have to relive it." She straightened slowly. "I do, because that's where I stopped being afraid." Inside the cabin, dust floated in beams of light streaming through broken boards. Lucas scanned the room, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. "Someone's been here recently," he murmured. "Footprints. 2 sets." Elena stepped closer, her pulse quickening. "David?" "Most likely." On the table lay cigarette butts, a half-empty water bottle, and a folded map marked with circles. Lucas opened it, frowning. "He's been tracking the mansion, and you." A sound broke the silence, a twig snapping outside. Lucas lifted his rifle, motioning for her to stay behind him. They crept toward the door. "Lucas," she whispered. He raised a finger to his lips. Another snap, then movement. The bushes parted and a man stumbled out, disheveled, bleeding, terrified. Lucas lowered his weapon slightly. "Who are you?" The man gasped, clutching his arm. "Please help me." He went crazy. Who did? Lucas demanded. David, your friend's husband. He's not alone. There's another man with him. Before Lucas could react, a gunshot split the air. The stranger fell dead instantly. Elena screamed as Lucas pushed her to the ground, covering her with his body. Down. From somewhere deep in the forest, David's voice echoed, cruel and triumphant. You came back, darling. How sweet of you to visit. Lucas crawled toward cover, pulling Elena with him. He's got a sniper, he hissed. We can't stay out in the open. The cabin door splintered as another bullet tore through it. Elena's voice trembled. He's hunting us, Lucas. Lucas looked her straight in the eyes. Then we stopped running. And as another shot rang out, he grabbed her hand and whispered, It ends tonight. The echo of the gunshot faded into the dense forest, leaving only the rhythmic beat of rain on the cabin roof. Smoke curled from the bullet holes in the wooden walls. Elena pressed herself against the floorboards, her pulse hammering in her ears. Lucas crawled beside her, his jaw tight, eyes sharp and calculating. He's got elevation, Lucas whispered. He's shooting from somewhere up the ridge. Elena's hands shook. How do we get out? He glanced toward the back window. We use the smoke. When I say run, you move fast and don't look back. Before she could protest, Lucas fired twice through the doorway, shattering the remains of the front window. Then he grabbed a flare from his vest, struck it, and tossed it into the corner. Fire sparked, filling the room with smoke. Now, he shouted. Elena ran, lungs burning, following him through the back exit into the trees. Branches clawed at her clothes, mud splashed against her shoes. Behind them, another shot cracked the air, splintering bark inches from her head. She stumbled, but Lucas caught her, pulling her behind a fallen log. Stay down, he said, scanning the ridge with his rifle scope. He saw a glint of metal, David's gun, nestled among the rocks. Lucas took aim, steady as stone, one deep breath, one trigger pull. A sharp cry rang out from the ridge. Got him, Lucas muttered. But the victory lasted only seconds. Another figure moved beside David. Taller, broader, carrying a second rifle. There's two of them, Elena gasped. You said it yourself. Lucas cursed under his breath. Bodyguard, hired muscle. The second man fired, and the bullet slammed into the log inches from Elena's hand. She flinched, clutching her belly. Lucas turned to her quickly. We have to move now. They crawled through the brush, mud streaking their clothes, until they reached a shallow stream. Lucas pointed across. The truck's on the other side. Once we reach it, we can loop around and flank them. Elena hesitated, breathless. Lucas, what if we can't make it? He looked at her, his voice calm and firm. You survived being left to die, Elena. You can survive this. She nodded, her fear melting into fierce resolve. Together they moved, slipping into the icy water, letting the current carry them downstream. Bullets hissed above the surface, missing by inches. They crawled out on the far bank, soaked and freezing but alive. Lucas helped her to her feet. He's losing patience, he said. He'll make mistakes now. From the other side of the river, David's voice echoed, closer this time. You can run, sweetheart, but I always finish what I start. Elena's eyes burned with tears, but her voice was steady. You didn't finish me the first time. Lucas touched her shoulder. Let him chase. We'll lead him exactly where we want him. She frowned. Where? A small grim smile crossed his lips. Back to the mansion. That's where we have the cameras, the proof, and the law on our side. Elena looked back at the forest one last time, the place of her pain and rebirth. Then let's end this where it all began, she whispered, stepping into the storm with fire in her eyes. The storm thickened as Lucas's truck roared down the forest road, tires throwing mud into the night. Lightning flashed above the trees, turning the world into shards of light and shadow. Elena sat beside him, soaked, trembling, but her eyes were blazing with something new. Not fear. Purpose. Lucas gripped the wheel, voice steady. We're going back to the mansion. That's where this ends. I have evidence, surveillance, and police contacts on standby. Once we get there, we expose everything. Elena stared out the window, raindrops blurring her reflection. You think he'll follow? Lucas's jaw tightened. He already is. Behind them, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, two beams cutting through the storm like blades. The black SUV was gaining fast. Elena's pulse spiked. That's him. Lucas slammed the accelerator. Hold on. The truck surged forward, splashing through puddles. The SUV stayed close, bumping their rear bumper once, twice like a predator toying with its prey. "Lucas, he's trying to push us off the road," Elena shouted. Lucas swerved hard, the tires screeching. "Not tonight." He cut through a narrow path leading toward the main road. The trees closed in on both sides, their branches whipping the windshield. The SUV followed relentlessly, its horn blaring like a war cry. David's voice crackled through a megaphone from the other car, cruel and taunting. "You should have stayed buried, Elena. I gave you peace, and you threw it away." Elena's hands balled into fists. "Peace? You left me to die." Lucas shouted over the rain. "Ignore him. He wants to shake you." But David wasn't just chasing them. He was hurting them. Ahead, the road curved dangerously close to the cliff edge. Lucas realized it too late. "He's driving us toward the ravine," Lucas muttered. "He wants to end this in one crash." Elena's voice trembled. "Then don't give him what he wants." Lucas gritted his teeth and slammed the brakes. The truck skidded sideways, tires screaming. David's SUV shot past them, missing the curve entirely. It fishtailed, spinning wildly, then slammed into a tree with a deafening crash. For a moment there was silence, only the hiss of rain and the distant rumble of thunder. Elena's breath came in ragged gasps. "Is it over?" Lucas stared at the wreck. "Not yet. Men like him don't die that easy." He got out, rifle ready, and approached slowly. Smoke billowed from the shattered SUV. The driver's side door hung open, empty. "He's gone," Lucas said, scanning the tree line. "He escaped." Elena stepped beside him, rain dripping from her hair. "Then he's heading to the mansion." Lucas turned to her. "You think he'll still try to get there?" Her voice was firm. "He wants me, Lucas, and he'll come to finish what he started." Lightning flashed, and for an instant she saw something in the distance, a figure moving through the rain, limping but relentless. David Tran was alive, and he was coming for her. Lucas looked at her, determination hardening in his eyes. "Then, we'll be ready." Because this time, the hunted had become the trap, and the road back home would burn before the night was over. The mansion loomed in the distance, its glass walls glowing faintly through the storm like a fortress of light surrounded by shadows. But as Lucas's truck approached, something felt wrong. The gate, usually sealed tight, was half open, swaying in the wind. Elena's stomach turned. "Lucas, the gate." He slowed the truck, headlights cutting across the rain. "Stay in the car." She grabbed his arm. "No, we do this together." Lucas met her gaze. The fire in her eyes matched his own. He nodded once. "Then stay behind me." They entered cautiously. The courtyard was littered with footprints, muddy, heavy, fresh. The guards were gone. A light flickered from the east wing window, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts. "Something's off," Lucas murmured. He raised his rifle, motioning for Elena to stay low. Inside, the house was silent, except for the creaking of the wind. Water dripped from the ceilings, pooling on the marble floors where blood had once stained them. Simba's deep growl rumbled from somewhere in the hall, followed by a faint whimper. "Simba?" Elena whispered, her voice breaking. They followed the sound. The lion was lying near the grand staircase, his mane still damp, but his eyes alert. He wasn't hurt, he was guarding something. Lucas crouched beside him, running a hand through his fur. "Good boy." Then he froze. A red laser dot danced across the floor. "Down!" he shouted, pulling Elena to the ground just as a bullet shattered the glass above them. The mansion erupted with chaos, gunfire echoing through the halls, windows exploding in showers of shards. David had brought help again, and this time, they were inside. Lucas rolled behind a pillar, returning fire with precision. Two of them in the east hall. Elena crawled behind a sofa, clutching her belly. The sound of battle filled the room. Bullets, roars, thunder. Simba lunged forward, taking down one intruder before he could reload, his roar shaking the walls. Lucas fired again, hitting the second man square in the shoulder. The intruder dropped his weapon and fled into the shadows. Then came the voice, the one that froze Elena's blood. "Still hiding, darling?" David. He stepped into view at the top of the staircase, his face half lit by lightning, his coat torn, his smile pure venom. "I told you," he said calmly, "if I couldn't have you, no one would." Elena stood, her body trembling but defiant. "You already lost me, David." He laughed, descending the stairs slowly. "You think you can hide behind your hero? Men like him don't save women like you, they use them." Lucas stepped between them, rifle raised. "The only one using anyone here is you. Put the gun down." David raised his own weapon, aiming straight at Elena. "Step aside, Carter. This is between husband and wife." Lucas didn't move. Not anymore. Lightning flashed, thunder crashed, and in that blinding second, both guns fired. The echo hung in the air like a ghost. When the light faded, David stumbled backward, clutching his side. Lucas stood firm, smoke curling from his barrel. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "You're done, David." Yet even as he fell to his knees, David's bloodied hand reached for the detonator strapped beneath his coat, and the mansion's lights flickered red. For a heartbeat, the world froze. David's hand hovered over the detonator, his smile widening through the pain. Sparks from the shattered lights reflected in his eyes, making him look almost inhuman. "Don't!" Elena screamed, stepping forward. Lucas aimed his rifle again, his voice a command. "Put it down, David. This isn't the way." David laughed weakly, blood dripping down his shirt. "Oh, but it's exactly the way. If I can't have my life, if I can't have her, then no one gets to walk away." He pressed the button. A low hum filled the air. Red lights flared across the mansion's ceiling. Lucas's eyes darted toward the far wall, where small, blinking sensors glowed behind the curtains. "C4, he breathed. "He wired the damn house." "Lucas," Elena whispered, her voice breaking. "Get out," he shouted, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the hall. Simba roared, lunging at David, knocking him to the ground before he could press the switch again. The detonator flew from his hand, skidding across the floor. Lucas dove for it, sliding on the marble. He caught it just before it hit the base of the staircase. The timer on the device blinked, 0:45. 45 seconds, Lucas said through clenched teeth. Elena's eyes widened. "Can you stop it?" "Maybe?" He turned the device in his hands, wires twisted and frayed. "Blue or red? Always blue or red." David laughed from the floor, coughing blood. "You won't make it in time." Elena rushed to Lucas's side, trembling. "Trust yourself." He met her eyes, then took a breath and cut the blue wire. The timer stopped at 0:03. Silence. Lucas exhaled shakily, tossing the detonator aside. "It's done." But David wasn't finished. With a guttural growl, he pulled a knife from his boot and staggered to his feet. "You should have let me die," he hissed, lunging toward Elena. Before Lucas could react, Simba moved, faster than sound. The lion slammed into David, sending him crashing into the glass wall behind him. The impact shattered the window, and David fell backward into the storm outside, disappearing into the darkness below. Elena froze, her breath trembling. "Is he?" Lucas lowered his weapon slowly. "He's gone." The rain poured harder now, washing blood from the floor, carrying away the last remnants of fear. Elena fell to her knees, tears mixing with the rain seeping through the broken windows. "It's over," she whispered. Lucas crouched beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Elena. You faced him." She shook her head. "No, we did it. All of us." Her eyes went to Simba, standing proud despite the wounds on his side. Sirens echoed in the distance, police, emergency lights cutting through the rain. Clara and the guards rushed into the hall, their faces pale with shock. Lucas looked around at the wreckage, the shattered glass, the flickering lights, the lion standing guard beside the woman he had once saved. And in that moment, as dawn began to rise over the bleeding sky, the truth exploded quietly inside him. He hadn't just saved her life. She had saved his. Morning broke over the horizon, pale and trembling, as if the sun itself feared to rise after the night's violence. Smoke drifted lazily from the shattered windows of the mansion. The once grand hall was scarred. Glass shards glittered like ice, broken marble glistened with rainwater and blood. But in the center of the ruin stood life. Elena sat on the steps, her clothes torn, her face streaked with tears and soot. Simba lay beside her, head resting on her lap, breathing slow but steady. She stroked his mane gently, whispering, "You did it, brave one. You saved us again." Lucas stood nearby, speaking quietly to the police officers swarming through the property. Their radios crackled with updates as drones scanned the forest for any sign of David's body. "No sign of him yet," one officer said grimly. "The cliff's steep. If he fell, the current probably carried him downstream." Lucas's expression was unreadable. "Search anyway. I want confirmation." The officer nodded and moved off. Elena looked up, her voice hoarse. "He's really gone, isn't he?" Lucas turned toward her. "If he's not, he'll wish he was." Despite the words, there was no triumph in his tone, only exhaustion. He sat beside her, his shoulders heavy with the weight of the night. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The rain had stopped, replaced by the soft hum of dawn, the first birds, the distant rustle of the forest waking up. Finally, Alina broke the silence. "When you found me that night, I thought my life was over, but maybe it had to end so something new could begin." Lucas glanced at her, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. Maybe fate just wanted to prove that not every beast is meant to harm. She smiled faintly through her tears. "You mean Simba or you?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "Both, I guess." A medic approached to check her vitals. "You should be in a hospital, ma'am. You've been through shock." Elena looked at Lucas, then at Simba. "No hospital. I'll recover here, with them." The medic nodded respectfully and moved on. Clara arrived moments later with blankets and tea, her eyes red from crying. "You're safe now," she whispered, draping the blanket around Elena's shoulders. "It's finally over." But Elena shook her head. "Not over. There's still the truth to tell." Lucas frowned. "What truth?" She met his gaze, her voice steady. "David's crimes, the money he stole, the lies he built. I won't let him destroy anyone else's life." Lucas smiled softly, admiration shining in his tired eyes. "Then we'll make the world hear your story." Outside, police cameras rolled, documenting the wreckage. The story of the murdered wife who survived was already spreading. Elena didn't care about fame or pity, only justice. As the first full light of dawn spilled across the courtyard, Simba lifted his head and let out a low, calm rumble. Elena looked out at the rising sun and whispered, "We survived the storm." Lucas stood, offering his hand. "Now let's rebuild what it tried to destroy." And for the first time in years, she rose, not as a victim, but as a woman reborn. 2 months later, the city courthouse buzzed with anticipation. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and a crowd gathered behind the barricades. The story had spread across every news channel: the wife who survived, the lion who saved her, and the millionaire who stood by her side. Inside the courtroom, Elena sat at the witness stand, her hands folded calmly in front of her. She wore a simple cream dress, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked serene, but her eyes carried the weight of everything she'd endured. David sat across the room, handcuffed, face pale but defiant. He'd survived the fall, rescued miles downstream by a fisherman who had no idea the monster he'd saved. His lawyers surrounded him, whispering frantically, but David's gaze never left Elena. The judge entered. "Court is now in session." Elena took a deep breath. Lucas sat a few rows behind her, his presence a silent pillar of strength. Clara was beside him, clutching a cross pendant, and even Simba's story had become part of the trial, the lion's photo displayed on the courtroom screen like a symbol of divine justice. The prosecutor stepped forward. "Mrs. Tran, can you tell the court what happened the night your husband attempted to end your life?" Her voice was steady. "He told me we were going on a trip. I was 5 months pregnant. I thought he wanted to fix our marriage." She paused, her hands trembling slightly. "But he drove me into the woods, tied me to a tree, and left me there to die." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. David smirked faintly, muttering to his lawyer. Elena continued, her voice growing stronger. "He didn't just abandon me, he took our money. Money meant for charity, for his company's employees, and funneled it into fake accounts. He used me as a shield for his crimes." The prosecutor displayed documents on the screen. Bank records, transfers, and the damning photo of the gold cufflink with his initials. D.T. David's lawyer stood. "Objection, Your Honor. My client." The judge cut him off. "Overruled. Continue, Mrs. Tran." Elena's gaze met David's. "You once told me I was nothing without you, but I survived without you. I found kindness, protection, and love where you left only pain, and today I take back everything you tried to steal. My name, my voice, my life." For the first time, David's composure cracked. His face twisted with rage. "You think you've won? You think they'll believe a liar like you?" Lucas stood suddenly, holding up a USB drive. "We have recordings," he said firmly. "Every conversation between David Tran and his partner in fraud, every plan he made to silence her." The courtroom erupted. The judge banged the gavel. "Order. Mr. Tran, you are hereby charged with attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy." David's voice broke as officers pulled him to his feet. "You ruined me." Elena's eyes were calm. "No, you ruined yourself." As he was led away, reporters shouted her name. Flashes filled the room, but she didn't look at them, only at Lucas, who gave her a proud, quiet nod. And when the gavel struck one final time, Elena Tran was no longer a victim of betrayal. She was the woman who turned her pain into proof, and her silence into truth. The trial was over. Justice had been served. David Tran was sentenced to 30 years in prison without parole, and his empire crumbled within weeks. The man who once lived for power now sat behind iron bars, forgotten by everyone he'd ever deceived. But for Elena, life was only beginning again. It was springtime at the Carter Wildlife Sanctuary. The trees were blooming, the air warm with the scent of wildflowers. Children ran across the meadows, laughing as rescued animals grazed peacefully in the sun. The sanctuary, once Lucas's private refuge, had become a place of healing for others, a home built from pain, courage, and second chances. Elena stood by Simba's enclosure, holding her baby boy in her arms. The infant cooed softly, his tiny hands reaching toward the lion who lay lazily under the shade of an oak tree. "Look at him," she whispered to her son. "That's Simba. He's the reason you and I are still here." The lion lifted his massive head, his golden eyes meeting hers. For a moment, time seemed to stop. In that gaze there was recognition, respect, and something deeper, a silent understanding that they shared the same story of survival. Lucas joined her, his hands tucked in his pockets. "He's growing attached to you two," he said with a small smile. Elena turned toward him. "He always has been. He doesn't forget the people he protects." Lucas nodded, his eyes soft. "Neither do I." They stood there quietly, the sound of the wind carrying the laughter of the sanctuary staff nearby. Everything felt different now, peaceful, grounded. The ghosts of the past had finally begun to fade. Elena placed a gentle hand over her heart. "Sometimes I still wake up thinking I'm back there, tied to that tree. Then I see the light through the window and I remember, life gave me another chance." Lucas looked at her, his voice quiet but firm. "You earned that chance. You didn't just survive, Elena, you rebuilt yourself." She smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I couldn't have done it alone." He chuckled. "You had a lion, a stubborn millionaire, and an entire forest on your side." Her laughter was soft, genuine. "I think that's what fate looks like, when the wild decides to protect what's good." A group of children approached the fence, waving excitedly at Simba. The lion stood slowly, powerful and majestic, before letting out a deep, gentle rumble. The sound wasn't fearsome, it was protective, proud. The kids clapped and cheered. Elena's baby reached toward the lion again, giggling. Lucas leaned closer. "He's not afraid of anything. He's got your spirit." Elena looked down at her son, tears glistening in her eyes. "No," she whispered softly, "he's got yours." Simba lay back down, eyes half closed, content. A golden beam of sunlight broke through the clouds, falling across them all like a blessing. For a long moment, there was only peace, the kind that comes after surviving the worst storms. And in that quiet, Elena finally understood. The beast fate had sent wasn't a curse, it was a guardian, a reminder that love in its purest form always protects. A year passed since the trial, and the mansion that once echoed with fear now bloomed with life. The scars of that night had been repaired. New glass walls, restored gardens, and the laughter of children where gunfire once thundered. The Carter Wildlife Sanctuary had grown into something extraordinary, not just a refuge for animals, but a haven for people rebuilding their lives. Elena stood on the veranda, sunlight warming her face. Her baby boy, Liam, toddled beside her, clutching her finger with his tiny hand. He had his father's eyes, but not David's. He had Lucas's warmth, his quiet strength, and a smile that could heal wounds. "Careful, sweetheart," she whispered as he wobbled toward the grass. From the courtyard, Simba watched them, his mane shimmering gold in the morning light. He'd recovered fully, though the faint scar on his shoulder remained, a reminder of courage earned, not given. Lucas approached from behind, carrying a basket of fruit and coffee. "He's walking faster every day," he said with a grin. Elena turned, smiling. "He's determined. Wonder where he gets that from." Lucas set the basket down and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "From both of us, I'd say." For a moment, they stood in silence, watching Liam chase a butterfly near the rose bushes. The world felt quiet, settled. The pain of the past had softened into something else. Wisdom, gratitude, peace. "You know," Lucas said softly, "when I built this place, I thought it was just for the animals. I never thought it would become a home." Elena leaned her head against his shoulder. You didn't build it for them, Lucas. You built it for yourself. You just didn't know that one day it would be ours. He smiled, his hand brushing a strand of hair from her face. Ours, he repeated quietly, as if testing the word on his tongue. I like that. Inside, the dining room was filled with photographs, rescued lions, elephants, and birds alongside the people who helped save them. At the center was a framed photo. Lucas, Elena, Simba, and baby Liam taken under the old oak tree. It hung above the fireplace, a testament to survival and love. Clara entered, her arms full of papers. The new volunteers arrived today, she said cheerfully, and the city wants to fund another sanctuary on the coast. You're becoming quite the philanthropists. Elena laughed lightly. We just do what's right. Lucas winked. And what's possible? Later that afternoon, as the sun dipped low, they gathered by Simba's enclosure. Lucas held Liam in his arms while Elena fed the lion a slab of meat. Simba's eyes gleamed, his tail flicking in calm contentment. Liam giggled, reaching toward the massive creature. Bah! He squealed, his baby word for Simba. Elena smiled, tears brimming. He thinks Simba's part of the family. Lucas looked down at her. He's not wrong. As dusk fell, they stood together beneath the fading light, no longer haunted, no longer afraid, just whole. And in that stillness, Elena realized, home wasn't just a place, it was the people, and the lion, who refused to let her die. It was a quiet autumn morning at the sanctuary, golden leaves drifting across the courtyard like gentle fire. Elena stood near the garden, watching Liam chase Simba's tail while Lucas spoke with the staff. Life had found its rhythm, steady, peaceful, full of laughter. But sometimes peace carries shadows. That morning, a letter arrived, no return address. The handwriting, sharp, familiar, made Elena's heart skip. She opened it slowly, fingers trembling. Inside was a single line. You can't bury the past forever. Her breath caught. For a long moment, she just stared at the words, her pulse quickening. She looked up at Lucas, who was walking toward her with a smile that faded as soon as he saw her face. Elena, what's wrong? She handed him the letter. He read it once, then again, his jaw tightening. This handwriting, it's his. That's impossible, she whispered. He's in prison. Lucas shook his head. Men like David always find a way to reach beyond walls. He called Clara immediately, instructing her to double-check security. The sanctuary went into silent lockdown. Guards repositioned. Cameras scanned the grounds. Elena stood on the porch, clutching her locket, the one that held Liam's photo. I thought it was over, she murmured. Lucas took her hands gently. It is over. He can't hurt you again. But the unease lingered. That night, when the staff had gone home and the lights dimmed, Elena sat by the fireplace, staring into the flames. Every creak of the house made her heart stutter. Lucas found her there hours later, wrapped in a blanket, eyes wide and sleepless. Hey, he said softly, kneeling beside her. You're safe. I just can't shake it, she whispered. What if he finds another way? What if he already has? Lucas brushed a tear from her cheek. Then he'll have to go through me, through us. Upstairs, Liam stirred in his crib. Elena went to check on him, humming softly until he fell back asleep. She lingered by the window, looking out at the moonlit courtyard. Simba paced near the fence, alert and restless. Something moved beyond the trees. A flash of light, small, quick, gone in an instant. Lucas, she called, her voice low but urgent. He came up the stairs quickly, following her gaze. The forest beyond the sanctuary was still. I saw something, she said, a reflection, like glass. Lucas's eyes narrowed. Binoculars. He grabbed the radio from the wall. Security, we've got movement east perimeter. Guards rushed to the scene, flashlights sweeping through the trees. Minutes later, one of them returned, holding a broken pair of lenses. Lucas examined them, frowning. Professional-grade, military issue. Elena's knees weakened. What does that mean? It means someone's watching us again, he said grimly. She looked out at the darkness, clutching the frame of the window as the wind howled through the trees. Below, Simba roared, loud, thunderous, defiant. The echo rolled through the valley like a warning. And in that terrible sound, Elena felt the truth settle deep in her chest. The past hadn't ended. It had only been waiting. The night smelled of rain and iron. Clouds hung low over the sanctuary, smothering the stars. Elena stood by the window, watching Simba pace restlessly near the fence. His tail lashed, muscles tense. He sensed it, the same darkness returning to finish what it had started. Downstairs, Lucas loaded a pistol, the one he swore he'd never need again. Security found tire tracks by the East Road, he said quietly. Fresh. Someone cut through the outer fence. Elena's hands shook as she held Liam close. You think it's him? Lucas met her eyes. I know it is. For a moment, silence stretched between them, the kind that comes before storms and endings. Lucas reached for her hand. I need you to stay in the safe room. Promise me. She shook her head fiercely. No. I'm done hiding. If this is the end, I'll face it. He hesitated, then nodded once. Then stay close. A crack of thunder rolled across the valley. Simba let out a low growl. The guards moved through the shadows, flashlights cutting arcs through the mist. Then, gunfire. Lucas spun toward the door, weapon raised. Stay here. But Elena followed, clutching Liam tight. Smoke filled the courtyard as bullets shattered the air. Guards shouted. One fell, hit in the shoulder, and there, emerging from the darkness, was David. Bloodied but alive, a phantom of the man he once was. His prison clothes were gone, replaced by black tactical gear. His eyes burned with madness. Miss me, sweetheart, he sneered, lifting his gun. Elena froze. You should be dead. Death's for the weak, he spat. You made me strong. Lucas stepped between them, firing once. The bullet grazed David's arm. David laughed, raising his gun again. Always the hero, huh, Carter? Let's see how brave you are when she's gone. Before he could shoot, Simba leapt from the shadows, an explosion of fury and golden power. The lion struck David hard, sending him sprawling to the ground. The gun flew from his hand. David screamed, struggling, slashing wildly with a knife. Simba roared, claws raking across his chest. The sound echoed through the valley, primal and final. Elena shielded Liam's eyes, tears streaming down her face. Simba, stop! Lucas grabbed his weapon and aimed. Move, Simba! The lion stepped aside, just as David lunged for the fallen gun. Lucas fired. The shot rang through the night. David's body went still. For a long, heavy moment, no one moved. Rain began to fall, hissing softly against the blood-soaked earth. Lucas lowered the gun, breathing hard. It's over, he said, his voice breaking. Elena knelt beside Simba, stroking his mane. You did it, she whispered. You protected us. One last time. The lion lifted his head, eyes gentle, before lying down again, exhausted but alive. Police sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer. Guards gathered around, silent witnesses to the end of a nightmare. Elena looked at the horizon, where the first light of dawn began to rise. She took Lucas's hand. He's gone. Truly gone this time. Lucas squeezed her fingers. Then let's start living, for real. As sunlight broke through the storm, Elena realized the truth at last. Fate hadn't sent her a beast to fear. It had sent her a protector to love. And this time nothing would ever cage her again. So that's how the story ends. What a journey, right? If you're still here with me right now, it means something in Elena's story touched your heart. Maybe her courage, maybe the reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's light waiting to return. Life isn't about avoiding pain, it's about learning to rise after it. Like the Stoics said, what stands in the way becomes the way. Every wound, every storm shapes who we become, stronger, wiser, and more human. Let Elena's story remind you, you are never truly broken. You are rebuilding. You are becoming. If this story moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who might need a little hope today, and don't forget to subscribe, because here we tell stories that heal hearts and remind us that love, courage, and fate always find a way back home.